All right, this could be probably one of those very few panel discussion where we are getting questions even before the discussion has started. I have I can see a couple of questions in the Q&A box already. So this should be very interesting.
I'm sure all of them are for Sunando.
No,
By me.
I won't that all of you will share
From
one.
Calcutta.
Life is as it is not easy in Calcutta. Why put unnecessary pressure? Mandar, need to follow your diet plan.
It's for all.
I'll share it with you. 18 kgs.
As long as there's no exercise, huh?
There is everything other, no exercise except for weight training.
You've lost what? It looks like about 15, 20 kgs?
18 kgs.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
You're looking leaner, meaner, and younger.
You never know. Chetri yaar is getting older. BFC might need me, so I'm just getting ready for the season.
And you've been a good scorer anyway.
Yeah.
Right, I think we are live now. So,
yes, Diksha.
Should we start?
Yes, we can.
All right. So, a very good afternoon, everyone. This is Diksha Tiwari, and I'm sure most of you would have had watched the Nations League match between Netherlands and Poland very anxiously last night. Well, that's what football does. Ignites passion like no other game in the world. Well, who am I to say that when we have today on our panel some of the top names of Indian football scene, from top functionaries to head of celebrated football clubs, along with a dynamic leader representing the sports department of a state which is now being called the sports capital of the country. So everyone knows the entire dynamics of football in India has changed in the last 6 to 7 years with emergence of Indian Super League in 2014, building infrastructure, investing in talents, nurturing the youth, honing skills apart, spending in technology and reach has seen an exponential growth. Such has been the movement of football that Odisha today too also has a club to its name. But much before that, football remained in the heart of Indians more than a century ago. We owe it to giants like Mohan Bagan, East Bengal, Churchill Brothers, JST, Dempo. So to discuss the evolution of Indian football, the clubs, grassroots development, challenges and opportunities ahead, we are here today and we have a wonderful panel. I would like to take this pleasure to introduce all of them to our audience who are there with us on Zoom and who are watching us live right now. So we have with us Mr. R. Vineel Krishna, Additional Secretary and Director, Sports and Youth Services Department, Government of Odisha, one of the leading architects of developing Odisha's sporting ecosystem. He joined as Odisha Sports Director in the year 2017. Since then, the state has, of course, hosted international sporting events and earned global accolades. I think everybody knows about it. Some of which, of course, includes the Asian Athletics Championship 2017, Hockey World Cup 2018, FIH Men's Series Final 2019, Commonwealth Table Tennis Championship 2019, FIH Hockey Pro League 2020, and the very recent Khelo India University Games as well. Mr. Krishna, a BTech graduate from IIT Chennai and a Draper Hill Fellow at Stanford University, joined the IS in 2005 in Odisha cadre. He's also the Managing Director of the Odisha Mining Corporation Limited. In addition to the responsibilities stated above, he also assumed charge as Officer on Special Duty to the Chief Minister on COVID Management. So we welcome you to this panel, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have with us Mr. Sunando Dhar, CEO Leagues, AIFF, graduated with a Bachelor of Science Economics degree from Ashutosh College, Kolkata. He's worked with the oldest sports management firm in India, Leisure Sports Management Company, worked there for 13 long years, where his job was marketing and managing various sports properties. It has been a decade since he's taken over as the CEO of the Leagues Department at AIFF, focusing primarily on making the leagues pan-Indian and restructuring the youth leagues to give more opportunities for aspiring young footballers from across the country. He has also played an integral part in making the India Under 17 World Cup 2017 a grand success. We welcome you, sir, to the panel, Mr. Dhar. Thank you so
Thank,
much for being here.
thank you, Diksha. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, moving on, we have with us Mr. Rohan Sharma, President, Odisha FC. Started his career in his parent organization, GMS Leadership, which is the world's largest cash buyer of ships and offshore assets for recycling. In 2015, GMS purchased a 55% stake in Delhi Dynamos before acquiring full ownership in 2016. He became the director of Delhi Dynamos FC in the most successful season, where they finished as high as third in the table. Impressed by the sporting scene in Odisha, when the management decided to shift the franchisee to Odisha, Mr. Sharma was made president to the newly formed Odisha FC. Apart from being the president, he is also serving as the interim CEO and technical director of the team. We welcome you, sir, to this panel.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We also have with us Mr. Mandar, Tamhane, CEO Bengaluru FC, followed his family tradition by becoming an engineer, started his career at his family automobile business, Bombay Cycle and Motor, Pune Agency. He has been a part of Bengaluru FC since its inception in 2013, served as the Chief Technical Officer for 6 years before becoming the CEO last year. In the meanwhile, the FC won 6 trophies in the first 6 years of its existence. Mr. Tamhane has previously held the position of manager with the Indian Under-23 as well as the senior national football team. He is also the honorary treasurer of the Pune District Football Association, in which he has been a member since 1999. Welcome, Mr. Tamhane, to this wonderful panel. All right, moving on, we have with us Mr. Mukul Choudhary, CEO Jamshedpur FC. After completing his master's in management marketing, worked in brand management, advertising with leading international brands like Cadbury, Coca-Cola for a long period of 14 years before venturing into sports in the year 2006, served as the general manager of Mumbai FC and the president of Mumbai Tigers FC before becoming the director of Manchester United Soccer Schools in India. He joined the Tata Football Academy as an administrator in 2015 and then took additional charge of head of sports, Tata Steel. He took charge of CEO Jamshedpur Football Club in 2017 as the Tatas forayed into the elite ISL. He has also been entrusted with the responsibility of being the chief of all the Tata Steel Sports Excellence Centers. So welcome, Mr. Choudhary, to this wonderful panel. And of course, before we move to the... Thank you. So before we move on to the Q&A session, I would like to introduce my wonderful co-host, Mr. Rajiv Seth, Project Director, NTHA Odisha, an ex-first-class cricketer from Bengal and Odisha, the first batch trainee and product of MRF Pace Foundation, Madras, coached by legendary Dennis Lilly, played as a professional in English and Scottish Premier Division leagues, having completed his ACB Level 3 coaching education program. He also coached Malaysian national cricket team in 2010. He had a short stint with Jamshedpur FC in the inaugural year, handling the administration and operations, has served in various capacities within Tata Steel before his current position of Project Director, Naval Tata Hockey Academy. And it is because of this academy that we are having these wonderful webinars today. So over to you, Mr. Seth, to take this over with our panelists and have a very interesting Q&A session as I pitch in with all those questions that's coming in from the audience as well.
Diksha, I can't go forward till such time I have you introduced with me. So obviously, we have the slide in front of us, but Diksha is somebody who's worn different hats, journalism, communication consultant, and whatnot. And she's been an integral part of the Hockey Men's World Cup, and the Commonwealth Games, which happened here in Odisha. And she's been part of the XCBS Ahluwalia Center of Excellence, which is again a very, it's a great venture in collaboration with XCBS and the government of Odisha. So before we get on, thanks, Diksha. I think you gave a very good prelude. But I think as part of my opening statement, let me just start by saying that from barefoot to boots, probably one of the most apt phrases that encapsulates the journey and the gradual evolution that football in India underwent. The journey, which started in late 1800 with Indians learning the ropes of game from the colonial masters and fighting it out with them for a level playing field, gave birth to the ethos of sheer determination and passion that the Indian teams, generation by generation, still embodies. The golden period of Indian football in 50s and 60s put India on the footballing map. The best team in Asia even had the chance to play the World Cup, which fell apart due to reasons unknown, much like the fall of Indian football post 70s. But it is not all gloom and doom, as the Indian national football team and Indian clubs have shown reasonable performances at the international level in the recent years. The last decade especially can fairly be termed as the Renaissance period of Indian football, with rankings hovering around the late 90s and the country hosting a mega World Cup event. The overall scene has improved drastically, and with corporates funding and a lot of focus on elevating the grassroots structure of the country that has talent in abundance. With the introduction of ISL, a landmark in Indian football history, the structural reformation of Indian football is definitely on the upward trajectory. Through this discussion, we will try and probe about what goes in behind the scenes of Indian football, right from the grassroots developments initiatives to the preparations taken and challenges faced in building clubs. As we move with this talk, we also attempt to identify the key stakeholders and their initiatives at engaging the masses and keeping the Indian football ecosystem up and running. Lastly, through this chat, we try to map a road ahead in terms of how to do and what to do. Obviously, not exactly what to do, but as clubs and entities, in order to make the Blue Tigers from Southeast Asia roar again on the world scene. Let me open the talk by talking about somebody who's known to be the constructor of sports in Odisha, Sri Vineel Krishna, along with his senior colleague, Mr. Vishal Dev, who's been introduced already by Diksha. So it's not every day that we get to speak with someone who has been part and active contributor of Odisha rise as a sports nerve center of India. Mr. Vineel Krishna, we would like to grab this opportunity and ask you something about the overall ecosystem and the state's remarkable rise as the sporting capital of the country. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Rajiv. So, before that, just regarding the, since we are all talking about the football, I just thought I'll just mention a few thoughts about football as well, before going into what exactly we are doing in Odisha. Football is something that, probably the only game in the world where every human being must have played it in one form or the other at some time in their life. And it is also the only probably a very few games where you don't exactly require any great facility for excelling in that game. And it's also a great equalizer. If you see many of the greats in the football field, they all actually come from very humble backgrounds. So I feel in a country like us and state like us, Odisha, football has a lot of potential, and it's not only just about the health or the fitness, but actually it can also become a good commercial story. While we all know about cricket, and you know particularly very well about cricket, cricket also dominates the country, but I think I feel probably a couple of decades down the line, football has the potential to actually compete with cricket, even commercially. While cricket as a success story, we all know that mainly from the 80s it has happened. And IPL, of course, has taken it to an entirely different level. Cricket is very perfect for commercials because you know it's a long format. You have over breaks between the overs, so very good for commercials. So that way, somehow cricket has just gone into a different level because of this commercial push. But still, I think football really has that potential, and it can really make it big in India. And probably, nowadays people don't actually have the patience for the long format. So if football can really make it as a fast-paced action and the kind of adrenaline that people want every weekend, so this actually kind of good. In fact, ISL has done that. ISL to a large extent has improved the quality of football action in India, and there's a lot of craving for in a lot of the Indian youth to see India on the football map of the world. Now, we in Odisha, we see a huge potential for these kind of non-cricket games like hockey and football especially. So that's why we have been supporting the federations also since last few years. I'm sure most of you must be knowing that Odisha is a sponsor of all the national teams of India in hockey. And we have also been the hub, as Diksha was saying. So we are also the hub for most of the international hockey events in India. We hosted the Hockey World Cup in 2018. We are again going to host it in 2023 again, Hockey World Cup in Odisha. So many of you must be wondering why exactly we support hockey so much. Well, to start, we thought it's a national game and then we should support it. And later on, we realized that there's officially nothing called as a national game in India. But still, nevertheless, India has great potential in hockey. To become a world champion and to become an old Olympic gold medalist. But these kind of sports, they require some stability and support. They're not fully commercially successful stories. So that's exactly the reason why we support hockey. And also Odisha has a lot of hockey talent in our tribal areas. And we hope that our presence in the Indian team will also increase a lot in the coming years. Now, with respect to football, I'm not sure how many of you actually know, Odisha sponsors the Indian Arrows team. And we also sponsor the under-17 national team. So there are two youth teams that we are actually sponsoring, and both teams have the base in Bhubaneswar. Now we are supporting in a way the future of Indian football, and we are betting on them, hoping that at some point they will bring glory to the country. And it's not only about the boys. In fact, our girls have actually performed in football much better compared to the boys. Now, we have been supporting the women football also to a large extent. And that is one of the reasons when we see potential for women in football. That is also the main reason why we are now the host, one of the host venues for the FIFA Under-17 football tournament, women's football tournament to be held next year. And many of our girls have also performed very well in the Indian team. So women football is, again, it's a great way of actually empowerment of the women at the local level. Our women footballers, many of the girls come from rural areas and very poor backgrounds. And playing football has actually changed lives of many of them. And promoting football as such, we have our own sports hostels, which we are now in the process of converting it into football academies, and we are also in the process of starting large-scale grassroots football coaching across the state. In fact, we want to launch it as a legacy to the FIFA event that's going to happen shortly next year. Because of Corona, there's a lot of dislocation in the last 6-7 months. But we hope that we'll be able to start all these grassroots level football coaching programs. In fact, we are looking at a very different way of doing these things. We have empaneled many sports management agencies, so whom we will be engaging in all these grassroots development programs, so that we get the worth for whatever we are putting our investment in, and there will be accountability also. So we are trying to see how these coaching programs can also be professionalized and not just run through a government kind of a system where usually down the line, the accountability is usually it's very difficult. And in Bhubaneswar itself, now we are having great football infrastructure. We are having 5 FIFA standard fields and 1 artificial field. And we really hope that in the coming years, Bhubaneswar and Odisha is going to create a lot of professional footballers. And we have now kind of gained, as some of the events were also mentioned, we have kind of gained a lot of expertise in organizing the sports events, especially when we have to organize it at short notice. Some of you might also might remember that a couple of years back when the first Super Cup was to be conducted, then they chose Bhubaneswar, and we got a notice period of 7 days. So all the top teams were from all the teams, in fact, both from ISL and I-League, they combined, they competed in this Super Cup that was held in Bhubaneswar in the first edition. And at a very short notice, we were able to organize, and it was organized very smoothly. And even recently, the Khelo India University Games, the ministry wanted Odisha to organize as the time was really short. So you can imagine that within a 2-month period, we have taken care of a multidiscipline, multi-venue event, university games, and that too thousands of university students. You can imagine how difficult it is to actually manage the university students. So that was also organized at a very, very short period. And in fact, SAI officials were saying that they never had this so smooth anywhere. They had organized the events. And we are very glad that since last year, in the Indian Super League, Odisha is now represented through Odisha FC. I'm sure Rohan will talk more about it. But Odisha is the only state which also needs to be pointed that which provides this kind of a support to a professional football club in a very unique partnership model. Now we provide the infrastructure, the club manages everything, and there is a kind of his corporate sponsor who comes from the state who supports partly financially. So this kind of a partnership is actually something that we have tried with many other disciplines as well. This kind of a model that we have adopted, and through this we have launched many high performance centers in various disciplines. In fact, the NTHA, which Rajiv said represents, is one such also initiative where Tatas bring in the entire coaching and they take care of the entire coaching program, while we provide the entire infrastructure that is required for the organizing this one. And we hope that even in hockey, it will really go a long way. And Odisha FC has actually ignited football fever in Odisha. There's a large number of fans, including myself. We have started watching ISL and cheer our team. And they actually had a very great run in the first season. And we hope in the coming season as well, they will continue it. And a lot of kids have actually taken to football after ISL. And we really hope that the trend will continue and football will grow big in Odisha and across the country. Thank you.
Championship this year, sir. Need the championship.
That's good, Rohan. I think, thank you very much, Vineel sir. I think what I can say is the difference between other moderators, debate hosting personalities who've hosted this kind of a stuff with the senior officials from Department of Sports, Odisha government. The difference between them and me is that probably I can take the pride of being part of this great journey which Odisha is going through in sports. And truly there's some phenomenal work which is happening here. The decision making has to be seen to be believed. And it's brilliant. I mean, it's not all those flowery words I'm giving, but I mean it because I am part in some sense or the other. And, it's a great feeling. Vineel sir, I wanted to check with you for the benefit of all that our best kept secret logo has hockey as part of it, along with other mnemonics. Any comment on that, sir?
Hockey is where we actually had a lot of good performance at the international level. Indian hockey team had a few of our Odisha persons as the captains. So that's one of the reasons. And of course, we launched the logo as a, in the run up to the Hockey World Cup. So hockey had to be there.
Correct. Thank you very much. I thought before Rohan asked that question, I should only ask. So going forward, just to set the ball rolling, speaking about the development of Indian football as we proceed, let us have a talk about the development of grassroots football in particular. India joined the party of grassroots programs pretty late. As mentioned, it was until 2015 that AIFF implemented the AFC FIFA Grassroots Charter. So may I now invite Mr. Sunando Dhar. Sunando, you would be the best person to tell this from the central body's perspective, since you have been ever present in the rebranding of the baby leagues to golden baby leagues. And your words at the launch of the same were, the entire purpose is to present a seamless pathway to the kids and their parents who dream to make it big. The baby leagues have had a massive impact on the Indian grassroots development structure. How does the golden baby leagues make it better and take it to notch higher?
Thanks, Rajiv. Firstly, it's great to be part of this August panel. Most of people in this panel are obviously friends. We have been working towards development of the game. Mandar, Mukul haven't really had the opportunity to meet Rohan, but I'm sure it would be very soon that we will cross paths. Talking about development, there have been a lot of changes in the AIFF structurally and execution-wise in the last 7, 8, 9 years. Obviously, getting more and more professional people, getting more younger people in football house. Average age when I joined in AIFF must have been 60 plus. I'm not saying Mandar's age, what he was at that point of time. And now I think the average age has come down to maybe below 30. So I'm kind of a veteran. In fact, in our parking lot, we play foot tennis and during the lunch break. And whenever I play, there are people who says that, from the Golden Baby League, the average age is going up. So that's the banter that goes on, but the spirit and the passion that is there among these young boys and girls who are working is fantastic, and it's something that we all look forward to, waking up and going to office, which sadly hasn't happened for the last 5, 6 months. But that's one great thing of working in AIFF, and that passion and love for the game has been seen in the ways that AIFF has implemented a lot of grassroots and youth development structures. One of the first things that we thought that needs to be addressed was when we came in, the National League had 14 teams. The 14 teams came from 5 states. So though it was a national league, it never had a national feel to it. And one of the strategic plans that we sat down with FIFA and did that we have to have teams from different parts of the country. And through those professional teams, the whole ecosystem in that particular city or the state can get, galvanized. Today, in this last 6, 7 years, the senior leagues, whether it's an ISL, I-League, second division, we have teams from 16 states. So from 5 to 16 over a period of 7, 8 years has been, I would say, good. But if you look at from the other point of view, it's just 50% of the states. There's another 50% still, which is not represented at the top level. That way, it's easier to get teams from the junior or the youth structure. That's why we introduced the under 18 leagues first, and then came the 15, and then the 13 to 3 years back. But if you look at football countries, the developed football countries, by the time they're 13, they're kind of whether they'll be able to make it or not. And out here, the sort of the Baichung Bhutias and Sunil Chetris, they start playing football seriously from the age of 15. We intentionally try to lower the age, catch them young, and help them grow. That's kind of cliched, but that's what we have been doing. And so we started the under 13, and we realized that we have to get down lower, the age limit. That's when we did research and we saw a lot of football-wise developed countries and who had similar kind of economic issues which India has and infrastructure problems. Started with Golden Baby Leagues, and one such country is Uruguay, where we don't have to have a proper field. You can play it on the street, on the beach, on a tennis court, on a basketball court. Just get them and let them play and enjoy the game. So that's when the Golden Baby League was introduced 2 seasons back. And over the 2 years, we have seen a huge jump. In the first year, there were about 21,000 players, both boys and girls, which participated. And in year 2, that number went up to more than 32,000. This year, obviously, 1920 season, obviously, we couldn't finish because of the pandemic. But in spite of that, the total number of matches that were organized were nearly 33,000, the Golden Baby League, which is, if you look at it, it's phenomenal. But the population size and the size of the country is such, there's so much more that can be done. And as you read out what I said during the Golden Baby League. That's what we intend to do. That catch the boys or the girls at the age of 5 and 6 and let them play the Golden Baby League till they're 12. And then they get into the professional club or the academy structure where they can play the youth leagues of the under 13, then the under 15, then the under 18. And then once they're 19, 20-year-old, they can be taken by big clubs to maybe start with their reserve teams and then the senior teams. So that structure, that pathway is created. And that is what we can do with that. That is what we can do as a federation. And I guess Rohan, Mukul, and Mandar are also here as a club representative. That's what they can do. Create that platform, give it to the boys and the girls so that they get a chance to play. And more they come and play, the scouts have an opportunity to identify the best from them. And we nurture them, we help them, we give them the best of facilities, both infrastructure as well as training. And we give them the opportunity to showcase their talent. And that is where our roles are. Obviously, we work very closely with the state associations who are affiliated to us. We work with the state governments, as Mr. Krishna also mentioned. We work very closely with the Odisha government. The support that Odisha government has given in the last 3-4 years has been fantastic. I think by far they have been the most proactive state government as far as sports promotion is concerned. Obviously, they have done huge things in hockey, but in football also, starting with the Super Cup, the Hero Super Cup, and then taking care of the 2 teams, including the Indian Arrows, who are the future stars of Indian team. And now that with the Women's World Cup, the improvement in the infrastructure, a lot of things have happened with Odisha, but the potential is so much more. And I'm sure Mr. Krishna would be the first ones to agree to that. There's so much more that can happen and so much new talents, both boys and girls. The girls have done definitely better than boys as far as Odisha is concerned, but we can achieve so much more. And I hope that beginning has been made and the platform has been put up. We can just improve from here.
Wonderful. Sky is the limit, as they say. After hearing so extensively about the central body's vision, we would now like to hear what the top clubs feel, doing the elevation of grassroots football in India. So I invite Rohan. Let's start with Odisha FC. So we've been hearing a lot of good things about the numerous leagues, as Sunando very rightly mentioned, the programs that are running across many centers, and your tie-up with the Aspire Academy, which resulted in players like Shubham's Sarangi, the Odia player in ISL. Tell us about this and Odisha FC vision with grassroots development activities.
Thank you everybody for having me, Rajiv and Mukul, for inviting me to this. Basically, Odisha FC was started on the belief of, before Delhi Dynamos, was started on the belief of developing young Indian footballers. That was the whole reason why, my father got involved with it, why I got in love with it, because we want to develop the kids of India, because we felt, there's so much potential, and India is such a vast country that it's impossible not to develop good footballers. And especially when we're focused on one sport like cricket, we have the opportunity to develop another sport, which the world plays, which is football. And so for us, as you can see through our roster, Indian roster, we have, I think now this year, the youngest roster in the ISL. I think our average age is 21. I think last year was second youngest. And what we want to do is put these kids, we sign these kids, and also grow the kids to our youth teams and put them to the first team, let them play, let them grow. Kind of similar how the Arrows is doing, but we're mixing with the good foreigners that we're trying to get and the team, so they gel, and when 2-3 years down the road, they are the core of our team, and they can play against everybody in the league, and hopefully win against the Jamshedpurs and the Bengalurus and all that stuff. Basically, for us with the Aspire program, because everybody, all our clubs are trying to tie up with these European clubs. One thing we want to do is to have a place for the kids to play, because at the time we were in Delhi, we didn't have the right facilities in Delhi that we do in Odisha. And Vineel sir messaged the High Performance Center. That actually is pretty good. Even our coach last year was saying it's almost as good as the one in Aspire, which is pretty good praise because he's been to both. But in Delhi, we didn't have that. So we want to do is send our young footballer kids almost to like a footballing college and put them in Qatar with the top facilities, let them train for 2-3 years and come back to our club. And Shubham was the first story, and lo and behold, luckily he's one of the success stories of the team. And it's almost, in a way, I don't want to say it's a fluke because he changed positions. He was a midfielder and a striker, and he became a right back this year, and somehow he made it work. And it so happened he's ODI as well, which we didn't plan for. We signed when we were in Delhi. So it's how funny how life works in that way. But Shubham is our first test subject to make it work, and we're very proud of Shubham. And he got called to the national team probables. Of course, got called up for the pandemic, but I would have liked to have seen him go and compete with Pritham as one of the right backs of the country. And we have a few more boys who came back, including Changte's little brother, another boy named Zwala, who's really good in midfield. So we've sent up to now, we've sent about 6-7 boys to Aspire already. And now they've come back, and now we're going to try to integrate them or loan them to an I-League club or so they get minutes as well and bring them into the system. But our goal is to keep developing boys and hopefully next girls in Indian football, so we keep supplying the next generation of footballers in India.
Wonderful. There was very interestingly, Rohan, you had famously said in one of your quotes, I want to
famously.
I want to grab every Odia talent to the club and want to build a football dynasty like AFC Ajax and not like Southampton FC. What did you mean by this?
Well, I hope there's no Southampton fans in the audience or anything, but basically the reason why, I mean, both teams are good at developing players, but the reason why I said Ajax instead of Southampton was because Ajax has a history of winning. Now, I have Bangalore sitting across from me, so it's hard for me to keep saying that with a straight face because Bangalore keeps winning all the damn trophies. But, I the reason why I want to compete with them because we have to have the core group. Why Bangalore has been successful is they had that core of Sunil and Gurpreet and had all that time in the I-League where they had that unit. And when I came in, I realized I need to build that unit. And the purpose of me developing is to do that. And this year, since we are an Odisha club, my responsibility as a club president is to make sure Odisha boys and now hopefully girls will get the chance to play football. And last year we had Ankit and Shubham, who were conveniently part of our stuff in Delhi, who came and they were ODIs, and so we used that. But now that we were going to start this year, but unfortunately the pandemic, we couldn't do it, is we're going to have our whole center build up for our under 18, under 15, under 13 program and have these ODIA boys try out so they can have a chance to come to the team. Because the beautiful thing about being in a state like Odisha is the fact that you can have these local, it's easy to have people come around to your club and come to your facilities. Like in Delhi, it was such a, it's so hard because you're Noida, you're in Gurgaon, you're coming to one center, it's an hour and a half in traffic, 2 hours coming back, and it gets kind of tiresome. And in Odisha, everything's within 20, 25 minutes. And so it's easy to have that center, that practice pitch, stadium, hostel, youth hostel that Neil sir mentioned, and to have that growth so you can have that kind of unit. And so this year we have signed some boys to be in our under 15 team from Odisha. So we think we signed about 3 or 4 as our first wave, but signing them is one thing. You want to grow them into good players like Shubham, to be that story, to be the torchbearers for Odisha. Why I think this year we were popular is frankly, I think Shubham becoming a bigger player than we expected to. I mean, I will say honestly, I didn't expect Shubham to take the leap that he did this year. And now he is what all the boys want to be when they grow up. All the fans always love Shubham. Even if Jerry scores 2 goals in a game, they all want to talk to Sharma after the game because Shubham is the ODI boy, which I find is so weird. I was like, Jerry had a crazy game. Why? No, Shubham. So it's part of the parcel of what it is. And I think we have to have our responsibility to develop more of these youth kids. But we've taken the first step of signing some younger boys. Now we want to have that whole system where we're developing them and making them to the first team. That to me will be the real success story.
Wonderful, super. While I would say that most of you are going to have tough time this time because of the pandemic and the tournament moving to one destination and to put your plans together. But we're going to discuss that a little later in the talk. But staying on the grassroots, let me bring Mukul in. Mukul, I would like to bring you here. While people are well versed with the youth development activities at the Tata Football Academy, the grassroots development activities conducted by Jamshedpur FC, which is also doing some remarkable work, and I've been privy to that, on that front is relatively flying under the radar. Share with us some of the initiatives Jamshedpur FC is undertaking to promote grassroots football. Mukul, over to you.
Thanks, Rajiv. And before I start, let me congratulate Odisha government for the kind of work they're doing in sports, and not just football, every other sport. And it's phenomenal. I've been seeing this and watching it, and it's really feeling proud that one is doing that. And so coming back to football in Jharkhand and Jamshedpur, typically we had Tata Football Academy, which is in existence for last 30 years. It's like, having a high school and no primary school. And that's when we realized that, you never had a supply chain per se, and you had a lot of good things that were happening we were basically, like Sunando touched upon it, saying that, you have this 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds and you're done with, you can't really progress after that. And that's where exactly you need to touch upon. And we realized that we need to work on this area. And we had feeder centers. There were a lot of engagements that were happening, but it was more on a very superficial level. And it was more of a community engagement without real seriousness per se. So when we had this club, which was launched, we realized that we have to look at it in a very serious manner, where you have to engage the entire community. One being that. Second thing is, it's our responsibility now to see to it that you have locals into, or rather local Jharkhand boys and from the periphery who can actually be inducted into the system. And we saw that big change happen when 2 years back we had Gaurav Mukhi, who was there in the system. And like Rohan was mentioning, there was a huge craze, the amount of audience that he could draw, though he actually scored one goal and then later, unfortunately, he had to be dismissed from the team, or he was not part of the team so much, but he could draw a lot of audience. And we realized that if you create such players over a period, this is something that, is going to be there to last. And that's where we started focusing. And when we started this, we realized the first thing, that the biggest problem that we had, that you had lots of schools and lots of school kids, but you never really had teachers. The first year in 2016-17 per se, we basically started coach education program. And we realized that if you have to start a proper training curriculum, you need good teachers, at least at the grassroots level to begin with. And then you see that they evolve along with you. Then they do the C, D, A, and so on and so forth. And that's where we actually put in a lot of efforts in the first year, more working on making teachers, which is now actually showing up in terms of results. We have so many schools which are engaged with us at every given point of time. Had it been not for this pandemic, we would have touched more than 5,000 kids who would train with us on a regular basis within soccer schools that we have. We have touched 3,500 now, but that number is still not small. So if you ask me if that's the number one is training on a daily basis, it's a big number. Apart from the other tournaments, other thing that we lack here is tournaments, because that's another thing which I think baby leagues, which have been started recently, and golden baby leagues, I think these are things which had to be done. And I'm glad that it's happened now, and it will only show better results in another 6-7 years to come. We have started them in Jamshedpur as well, and we have seen a lot of engagement. And it's so nice to see not just the kids on the ground, but their parents. And it's like a big fair. It's a big festival, which when it happens every weekend now we have opened up. Usually TFA was more of a closed door kind of affair, where only the elite footballers were allowed and nobody else. But just looking at the way the frenzy has been, TFA now hosts those baby leagues every weekend, and every parent is just proud to take his bacha there and have this particular evening out. And it starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, goes on till 7-8 in the evening, and it's just a fantastic experience that you have every weekend. So something that we started, and we started liking it the way it's growing. I'm sure we're still in touch with all of our kids and very much engaged. We try to do whatever programs that we could do virtually. But I think grassroots is something that we have to work on. Every other club, AIFF, FSDL, I think everybody's working on it. And I think another 10 years or more, we'll see a different level of football in India for sure. So that's my submission. And I think there's a lot of good work that is going on right now. It may turn around and show its colors in time to come, but it's a journey and there's a distance to travel. But of course, the steps that have been taken so far are phenomenal, and not only for us. I think it's all the stakeholders, the way they're putting in their efforts. So I think it's just going to be a great sport going forward in India.
Wonderful, Mukul. In fact, I would also like to mention that I think you're undertaking some, coaching upgradation programs also within the vicinity, and also developing some coaches out of the fraternity, which itself strengthens the grassroots initiative intent, which we all keep, for the sport we love. I would like to invite Mandarji. Mandarji, tell us some of the initiatives what Bangalore FC is taking in this regard, and how do we learn from them?
Yeah, good afternoon to all. Thank you, Rajiv. As a club, I think our primary goal has always been, since we started in 2013, is to contribute to the development of Indian football. So with that in mind, wherever we feel we can contribute in terms of the first team, in terms of the grassroots, in terms of the elite grassroots, in terms of even maybe trying to be involved in method in which we can engage the fans. So all various ways is probably what we want to focus on, where in our own way we can contribute to Indian football. Coming to grassroots, I think we started off only with our elite programs to start off with in the first couple of years. It was a non-residential setup in Bangalore. And as Sunando mentioned in the beginning, the youth leagues were only initially the under 18s and then the under 15s, and now we have the under 13s and obviously now the baby leagues. So initially we only concentrated on the under 18 and under 15 because that was the only two ages which had a supporting tournaments or supporting games for the teams to play. And obviously once the under 13 started, we had the under 13. But over a period of 7 years now, we have a pyramid where we start off with the basic community service that we have in Bangalore. Above that, we have the BFC soccer school programs, which is a pay and play program, which we have almost reaching out to 1,750 kids currently, not only in Bangalore but in Mangalore, which is another district in Karnataka, and also in two other states, which is in Maharashtra, in Pune, and in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad. So this way we want to just reach out in wherever possible we can, and especially in areas which don't have a ISL club or an I-League club. About that, what we realized after the BFC soccer school program is we wanted the better kids which are part of the soccer school programs to have a certain pathway to grow. And we formed the elite soccer school program, which was the selected boys from within the soccer school program, having an additional 2 sessions that they did in the during the week. And from there, then if they progress further, then we have the various under 7s, 9s, 11s, 13s, 15s, 18s, and reserve teams, which is our elite programs in the where we adopt them and where we take care and ensure that we take care of their education as well as their stay, food, nutrition, etc., etc. And then we have a pathway that goes into the reserve team as well as the first team. So the idea is to ensure that there is this kind of a pathway where every kid in whatever level or whatever ability that he has, he gets the opportunity to participate in that various caliber that he has. And at the end, also, we have to ensure that we have to give them competition at those various levels. So if you are looking at the 7, 9, 11s, obviously, as Sunando mentioned about the baby leagues, that is something which is very important that has started. And through that, we are able to give them almost 30 to 35 games in a year, which obviously can grow. And I think that is approximately the number which we would want to have even for our 13, 15, 18s. But that is where we are currently having only maybe 12 to 16 games, depending upon the zonals as well as the national round. And I think that is somewhere along with the AIFF, we need to find a way where we can increase that competition for them. Obviously, the reserve team is something which can play in the local state league as well as the second division I league. The AIFF and the league department, especially Sunando and his team, were able to give us this opportunity that our reserve team got to play in the second division I league. So ensuring that you have programs, but parallelly ensuring that you give them competition to play, because without competition, the growth is not going to be there. Even for our soccer school programs, we have started our own BFC soccer school weekend league, where we ensure that each center the boys come from, they go over a weekend and play matches, and we're able to give them also close to 25 to 30 games. So this has been the pathway for us in terms of the entire grassroots program is concerned. With the AIFF accreditation for grassroots and academy, we are currently the 4-star academy in India. And recently the AFC also gave us the 2-star accreditation for our grassroots program. And as per the AFC, the new definition for grassroots is everything other than professional football comes under grassroots. So whether it's your elite programs or whether it's your soccer schools or community service, everything, including all these things come under the grassroots program. So the idea is just to keep on growing. Idea is to ensure that, as Rohan mentioned, is to contribute to the player development, not only just for our own first team, but also for the various youth teams, for the national team, as well as the senior national team. So that has been always the agenda right since the beginning. And as a club, we try our level best wherever possible that we can contribute in this. And having said this, it is also equally important to have the right coaches in the right positions for that time, because unfortunately, because of the system that we have in India, and sometimes I feel we clubs or we administrators are to be blamed, that we look at a youth program as just something that has to be ticked off because of maybe the AIFF's licensing criteria, and we do not compensate them the way we should be compensating them. And hence, these coaches use these youth development as a ladder to climb in their careers, probably to get a job in the first team, etc. But if we as a club ensure that we compensate these coaches also at the youth level, handsomely, then, and we can make them specific youth coaches rather than having aims to further grow into the the senior teams, because the mindset of a coach also is different. Because at a youth level, you cannot be propagating winning every time. It is about player development. The focus should be on the process of player development rather than winning. Yes, but at the senior team level, it has to be only about winning. You just cannot talk about anything else. So it's a way how we as a club or we as administrators also ensure that we expect from our staff or from our players, and I think that also plays a very important role in this entire process.
So I think it all augurs well when we listen to you all with the words of wisdom on grassroots programs. I see a well-knit network which is already operating in the Indian football map. And I think good days are ahead as we go past this pandemic and opportunities will open. I think all these plans which have been mentioned would surely produce results. Moving to the next platform of clubs, etc. So the grassroots development to club management and administration, as Mandar, you also mentioned that it's a very important factor. So, and there seems to be a little bit of a flack which happened before the ISL emerged. Let's put it this way. So, I mean, what would like to say about clubs run until the Bangalore FC was the way showed that what professionally clubs can run and achieve, that too within a short span of time?
No, I mean, see, I wouldn't say so, because as a club, we were part of the I-League also initially for initial years of our existence, and then obviously we came into the ISL. I think each one has its own importance, has its own role in contributing to the development of Indian football. I wouldn't say that only ISL did that. I think definitely I-League was also a part for us to grow in our journey. I-League was something which taught us that how you should be able to look at a football club as a football club, which means not just the first team, but everything that is related to other than the first team, whether it's your grassroots program, whether it's the people that work at the club in various departments, etc., because that coincides with the AIFF and AFC licensing criteria. So I think if anybody wants to run a football club, I think that is something which you should look at as a Bible. Unfortunately, we have been looking at the licensing criteria as something which has to be done, has to be just a tick mark. So we try and shoot things. But if you use that some kind of a Bible, I think it's a good enough way for us to function in terms of everything that is related to the football club. So I think each part of our journey has been important for us. We have been learning from everybody. We have learning from all the relevant stakeholders, whether it's the other clubs, obviously various associations, whether it's our district association, state association. I think AIFF has played a very important role in where we are as a football club in terms of the way we were, because in the first year that we won, for us, we got the opportunity to represent India in Asia. And that is something which we feel we are very proud of. And for us, for all of us involved, it was a new journey. And the support that we got from the AIFF to that, I think it still helps us in the long way, where we have been representing India in AFC competitions for the past 4-5 seasons now. And I think this is something which every club would want to do, and every club will grow with that. Because at the end of the day, if my entire decision making is based on what is good for Indian football, then I would aspire always to ensure that I represent India at whatever level I can as a football club.
Correct. And Bangalore FC model is a blueprint for a new and upcoming club, as we all know, and then you narrated that very well also. The kind of remarkable success your club has had in the last 7 years is unseen. 6 trophies in first 6 seasons of your existence is a stuff dreams are made of. Can you take us through what goes behind such fantastic model that has success both on and off the field?
I mean, I would not judge how well we are doing in terms of the trophies that we are done. I think because that's part and parcel of any sport. You're going to win sometimes, you're not going to win sometimes. But what I feel, what we probably do is we concentrate on the process which is required for everything. I mean, I cannot have a one-way vision in overall vision. Obviously will always be to contribute development of India. But then if I'm talking with my first team coach, I have to think in a certain manner. If I'm talking to my grassroots and youth development, I have to think in a certain manner. If I'm talking to my media team, I have to think in a certain manner. So it's how you want to model yourself in terms of every department of a football club. And I think that is where I think we are doing things probably in a manner which we feel is right for us, as well as our vision of helping Indian football. And also it then requires to have the right people working at the club. And I always feel that for us, what has always been the plus point is the people that work at the club, right from our head coach to maybe even the ball boy that we have. And that's something actually helps when you're taking decisions. And at the end of the day, wherever you are, whether you are sitting in a government organization or the AIFF or all the clubs, even as Rohan as an owner, it is all about decision making. And that decision making sometimes is so crucial that you have to have a very clear vision. What is it for? Is it for the benefit of Mandar, or is it the benefit of my head of operations, or whether it is a benefit of somebody else? If I start thinking of in those lines, then we are not going to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. So here it's always about what is good for Indian football, and that's way everybody at our club takes decision in whatever he or she does. And I think that is something which is helping us as a club. So I think it's keeping it very simple, just ensuring that whatever we do helps in the contribution of development of Indian football. And I think that is what probably has been the success story for us as a club.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll would like to bring Sunando in this. When we speak about the success and professionalism of Bangalore FC, on the flip side, historic clubs like Dempo SC, Sporting Clubs de Goa and Salgokor FC have withdrawn from the I League and don't compete at the top level anymore. In the last decade, around 20 clubs have either shut shop or scaled down the operations. How much has this impacted the Indian football ecosystem, and what would be the solution to phase this out? So, Sunando Saab, your comments on that.
See, any club, big or small, when they close operations, it's not good for the game. It's a club like Dempo, which has had one of the most amazing record as far as winning the National League is concerned, or clubs like JCT, Mahindra, Gaonkar. It's never good for the football, but I'm sure they had their issues, financial or otherwise, why they closed. It's good to see some of them, like Dempo, still with the game, contributing into youth development, grassroots, and doing a fantastic job, investing in infrastructure in Goa. And so the football, they're in football, which is good. Yes, as you rightly put, it's always sad and unfortunate when clubs close down. But if you look at the bigger picture, if there are 10 clubs which have closed down, there are more than 40 new clubs that have started. And I'm not only talking about the ISL clubs, obviously they have started, but clubs and academies across the country. So there are good stories which has happened. And I would like to believe, maybe I'll give you a biased answer, but I would like to believe that there are more clubs which have opened and clubs which have closed down. The total investment in Indian football has gone up by leaps and bounds. And whether it's in ISL, when they advertise for a new club and the bidding process, or whether it's I-League, we see clubs wanting to join the bandwagon. So that means the interest level and the passion is still there, and that remains. So I would like to take it in a positive manner. I think there are more clubs which have opened up. Talking about Bengaluru FC and especially about BFC and the starting of the phase, as I said in my opening remarks, there were 14 clubs from 5 states, and one of the things that we thought was to get more states involved, and AIFF took 2 major roads for that. One was to try and strengthen the second division in the states and the state leagues from where the second division clubs came in. So the better state leagues would make better clubs who can qualify from the second division. Another was the direct entry. And Bengaluru, as Mandar and you mentioned, the first team in the first year, 13-14 season, Bengaluru came in. And whatever we thought that we wanted a new club to do with, I think Bengaluru has done better than that. Largely to the team that they've put in place, and I'm not talking about the team which plays, but the team that is behind the scene. The team led by Parth and Mandar and Mustafa and the rest of the gang. And that team is equally, or if not more important than the team which plays on the field. And the family that they have built is fantastic. And that one example, that one success that we had gave us the confidence that what we are trying to implement, we are on the right path. And after that, there have been many such clubs which has come on the fold. One thing I would like to put on, since we are talking about grassroots and youth development, uh, when Bengaluru BFC came on board, youth structure in Bangalore, in Karnataka, wasn't great. We had hardly any participation of youth teams from Bangalore. Since the introduction of BFC, since their success over the span of years, since the work that they have done, a football revolution has happened in Bangalore. And today we have more than 14, 15 academies, clubs who play from Bangalore in our youth leagues, and which is fantastic. And I would like to give all credit for that to BFC for getting that football culture in the city. And there are teams, there are clubs who are opening up every day, trying to compete, trying to beat Mandar. And that's the best thing to happen for the development of the game. And I would really hope that the same impact Odisha FC would have in Bhubaneswar or in Odisha. Today we have from Bhubaneswar only 3 clubs in the youth league. And that is the reason why we have to club the clubs from Odisha and Jharkhand in one group to play in home and away. And at that age, at under 13 and under 15, we don't want kids to travel so much to play on home and away. If they're close, geographically close to each other, they get to play more matches. And as Mandar said, we want our kids at all levels, starting from under 13 till seniors, to play 35 to 40 matches. For them, they have to be, close to each other. And that's what we are also trying, working through the state associations, trying to increase the number of matches at the youth level. More you play, more you develop. And that's the mantra. And hopefully in 2-3 years' time, we sit for another webinar like this, or in person, hopefully, better than webinar. And there would be 10 clubs from Odisha and 10 from Jharkhand. And we have a Odisha as a separate area where these 10 clubs compete, and Jharkhand as a separate group where 10 clubs compete, like what's happening in, say, Bangalore or Calcutta or Goa or Mumbai. So the established and the professional clubs play a huge role in not only development of the club, but also football ecosystem in and around. And that is what we also intend to do. That get the help of these professional clubs to inject football culture in that city.
I entirely agree with you on that, Sunando. And I think even if I may say they are early days for Odisha FC in Odisha, but I think sky's the limit. They've really started very well last year, given the circumstances and the home matches and many other facets attached to it. So let's hear from Rohan. Rohan, just a very quick one. Moving from Delhi to Odisha, tell us a little bit about it. I'm sure there will be a lot of viewers and excited to know about it.
Yeah, the move itself, we moved within a month, and credit goes to our CEO at the time, Ashish. She really pulled up his socks and helped us move. And the government, of course, was very welcoming, and everybody from Vineel and Michelle Sir, and really helped us getting settled in. And actually, I like what Sunando said earlier about having more of these local clubs, academies, stuff like that in Odisha. Because, see, one of the reasons why, and I saw someone in the chat even putting this, all our youth teams were playing in Delhi last year because we didn't have enough matches in Odisha yet. And I actually got into a call over this pandemic as I was calling some of these youth, because there's a lot of not youth, there are more of these development schools. And I said, you guys need to start having schools, because teams, because I need to play with you guys. And eventually, some of these players will come to my team as part of I'll sign them, and they get money from me, and they come in part of the system. And that's very important. So I just want to address that, and I do agree with you 100% that we will. And I think everybody from the government and to us, we're going to work hard to make sure we have these schools ready so we can have a proper Odisha state as part of our own league. We play the under 18s, under 15s, under 13s. But going more to your question about the move, it was it was a difficult move because obviously anytime you're moving from a city to another city, there's gonna be a lot of bad feelings. There's gonna be a lot of, bad press. There's gonna be a lot of issues because you're changing. And of course, the stadium, due to the hurricanes that we had, it wasn't ready yet. That was a big issue for us. But in the end, I think the interesting thing is it brought the team closer together, which is not like a cliche. I know that's a cliche. It brought things. We actually, the players became more and more closer together because we were in hotels, then we were in Pune, then we came back. And that created a lot of bonding, which I think helped towards the middle half of the season. Of course, towards the end, we had injuries and it didn't work out. But I think at first, everybody was a little bit nervous about the move from Delhi because Delhi is such a big city and you have all the hotels and the restaurants, and Odisha is a little bit smaller in that regard. But when people realize how much easier it is to kind of maneuver throughout the state and having this, like I told you, that center, which is so crucial in football. Even Coach Gombau was telling me, he said, I'm happy we moved. He said, even though it was farther away from his family was in, in Delhi and they were going to school there, he was still willing to take a plane to fly there because it was better to be in Odisha because of the facilities, because of the not much of travel, and because of the ease of doing things. And there's a problem, the government is always there to help. So in the short term, it was painful, but I think in the long term, and even if this pandemic wasn't here, we would have seen more of the fruits of that because we would have spent all our summers. I would have been back in Odisha. I would have been still in Odisha right now, setting things up for different things right now because it would have had our camps, or we were going to go to different cities like in Rukla to start doing our own thing there to keep growing the sport. Because the best thing about being in Odisha is it's an Odia club, and Delhi is too much of it's a big homogenous, it's a mixed pot of different people, and you don't know some people from Manipur, some people from Kolkata, some people from Punjab, and you don't have that single cultural identity. In Odisha, you have that one single cultural identity of Odia pride, and that's why we even called the club Odisha FC, not Bhubaneswar City, which was touted, drafted Bhubaneswar FC. We said no, Odisha FC because that's for the state. And you have that connection, you're able to keep growing things and making things people more interested in it. Because like I like the tagline, India's best kept secret. And I told on an interview, I said, I don't want to be India's best kept secret anymore. We have to be India's well-known thing because it's time. Odisha,
Correct.
what they're doing and what we're doing in sport and what we're trying to accomplish is so ambitious. And a lot of clubs can tell you they have the biggest problem with the government working with the FA. And that's even when, and respectfully in Delhi, I had an issue with that. And if you're having a problem with your government, it's with stadium rights and being able to play in your stadium, or practice pitches are not being done. And it creates this kind of, you can't grow a club that way. And that's why even in our owners meeting, Mrs. Ambani was very saying that what the Odisha government has done is very, very helpful for Odisha FC. It's very admirable. Herself said that. So this is what it takes. And you need to have the state government involved with your club, or else it's not going to work. It's going to be very difficult, and you don't want to be, dealing with it all the time. So no, that part for long-term gains is amazing.
Super. So continuing from the subject of growing football culture in Odisha, I would request Vineel sir's views. The kind of exposure the state of Odisha got by hosting the Men's World Cup is evident, with Kalinga Stadium being one of the 5 venues that are hosting 2021 Under-17 Women's Football World Cup. Do you expect the Odisha footballing ecosystem to get the same impetus as hockey got in 2018 mega event, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Odisha does have a lot of football interest. Probably it comes from the Bengal side. So it's only that now these events, in fact, we have been conducting these Super Cups, and also the 4-Nation Women League was also conducted. Now the big event of FIFA will happen. So and these are all the events, but what I really believe is that Odisha FC is that continuous season after season, when people get used to the ISL matches and they start cheering their teams, that is when and they also are very keen on starting many of these leagues and youth level programs. Maybe in fact they have been tying up with many schools in Bhubaneswar to start with, and it has gone out very well. And because of the pandemic in the last 6 months, nothing much could progress. But we hope that is something that will really ignite so much of football thing in Odisha, that we are very sure that football is going to pick up a lot. Because, unlike hockey, since you deal with hockey, very well, the infrastructure that you require for hockey is like, it's crazy. To have, for example, now you are very well part of the committee and part of it. So we are now in the process of developing almost 17 synthetic turfs in one district of our state. most of the players come from that particular district. So we want to take it to the block level, create those kind of synthetic turfs, and so that the kids can start playing right from the very young age on synthetic turfs. So that and that's very, very costly, not only the capital investment, but also the maintenance of it, and it's really crazy. And it's obviously because of that reason when we were asking, I think Netherlands, your coaches come from there. They have something like 1,500 synthetic turfs or something in such a small country. I'm talking about hockey. Whereas in India, all put together, we don't even have 20 synthetic turfs. So it's no wonder that they are able to produce, because the kids start playing on synthetic turf right from a very young age. So hockey has that limitation, whereas in terms of football, it's all about having a nice, good coach who has that motivation, passion, and he starts on a school ground. So it can really pick up very, very easily. I mean, that's what actually we are planning, whereby we are saying that let's start it in 100 location. We'll employ coaches. Let's start the grassroots. Let's start some competitions. And Odisha FC will also be conducting many of these leagues. And our state association also, we are continuously in talks with them. They're also very keen on doing something like this. So we hope to build up this right from the grassroots level up to the state level, all types of leagues and different age groups. In fact, one of the other things that we were discussing and we will be shortly be launching is also identifying these clubs which are really performing well in the state and actually giving them some kind of a financial support. The way we are trying to support some federations to have stability, we are also in the process key. So one of the ideas that we were floating is that we will conduct a tournament, and whoever comes top 10, we are going to support them for the next 5 years in their development with some performance parameters year after year, so that they also get the stability of the financial, and then we can work on their technical aspects, how we can develop their coaches, how we can conduct coaching camps for them. So it's an ongoing process. It's something that needs to be looked at as a long-term partnership with so many clubs and also various coaching programs across the state.
Sir, in the same breath, I would like to also accentuate on the point that Odisha is a prime example of triple P, PPP model, which is, what is your message to other states? I mean, I'm sure they must be doing things in different way, so as we, but I'm just saying, what could be,
actually,
because it's a successful model.
Every state will have to evolve on its own based on its local situation. Luckily for us, we have a kind of a political situation and we have kind of a corporate situation that we are able to do this. It's not something that you'll be able to do it in many other states. So we are lucky to have it, and while we have done it for next 5 years and with a couple of HPCs for 10 years, we are hoping that it will be a sustainable model. So it's a kind of an experiment that we are having. So it depends on so many factors. You have been dealing with it at our departmental level, with different multiple agencies. So it's a complicated way of doing it. Sometimes your own organization, you will be having problems because they'll assume that there are certain things that we will be doing it, whereas you explain to them that it is not our responsibility, but it is your own responsibility. But then they may or may not. So it's a complicated way of dealing with these things, and I think only time will tell whether our model is really sustainable and it's really worth doing this in the long term.
Excellent, sir. So talking about Indian football, it is imperative that we discuss the scenario regarding Indian women's circuit. So Mandar, I invite you, let me start with you. Despite being one of the most successful clubs in India, Bengaluru FC doesn't have a women's team. But recently in February 2020, Bengaluru FC played an instrumental part in transfer of Bala Devi to Rangers FC, which created ripples in the Indian women's circuit. Tell us more about this transfer and Bengaluru FC's part in the deal. I hope I have not put you on spot, but just
no, not at all. I think to come to Bala and Rangers, etc. I think what you rightly mentioned is, as a football club, we definitely have not been contributing the way we have been doing in the men's football for women's football for sure. And that is something which we are very much aware of. There are certain reasons why we don't feel that we should be in a position to be involved with the women's football. And I think Sunando is very much aware of many of those concerns that we had. But having said that, the other clubs and the AIFF and the people who are currently part of the IWL or contributing to ensure that women's football gets that base, I think they are doing an incredible job. And I think when we feel that the league is longer, or in a way where we will be able to contribute the same way where we can for men's football, I think we'll be the first club to do it, because we ourselves don't see as per what we want to achieve by having a team for 1 month, playing an IWL for 1 month, or having a team, or assembling a team maybe 1 month prior, and then just having a 2 month program for the IWL, where we feel we can contribute to the larger interest of women's football in India. That's our perception, and it's no disrespect to the others who are doing it. But I think once we have a 4-5 months at least program where we will be able to have the same facilities, have the same kind of infrastructure support that we are giving our boys team or the men's team, if we are able to do that for the men's team with the kind of development we can achieve through such programs, we'll be the first one to invest in women's football. And I think it's in the coming years, I think we will be definitely contributing on that. And since we were not able to do that, and since we had a partnership with Rangers, and while my discussion with Rangers at the time of having the partnership was they were very keen to do something for women's football. And as I said, we didn't have a women's team. We were thinking about how we could integrate a possibility of maybe this under 17 Indian women's team, which is going to participate in the under 17 FIFA World Cup, whether we could send them there in Scotland, in Glasgow, and maybe do a camp for a month or so through this partnership, etc. So there were various ways that we were trying to discuss with them. But then they said, why not have an opportunity to see if we can have one of the national team women's player come and give a trial here. And we did have a bit of research as to which the girl should be, and we got a name with working with the AIFF. We got a couple of names. Ashalata Devi was one, and Bala obviously was the other. And Ashalata Devi is mainly a defender, and we felt that if an Indian woman goes in as a striker, goes and plays in a club abroad and scores a goal, there'll be a lot more noise, a lot more awareness about it. So we felt that Bala would be the right choice for us to facilitate this trial. And Bala was there, I think, in Glasgow for around 12 to 13 days, where she trained and trialed with them. And I think she did exceedingly well. I think she played some 3 games and scored some 4 or 5 goals there. And she was very, very impressive for the coaching staff. And they asked whether there could be a possibility to, have her there. But from our side and from Bala's side, she apparently she's an employee of the Manipur police. And she got a lot of help from the Manipur state government to ensure that that permanent job offer doesn't go, and she's given that leave so that she goes to play there. And then obviously the big fight was to get her the work visa or the work permit, which we say, which is difficult for any Indian boys or girls trying to seek a professional contract there. And because of India not amongst the ranked top 50 in the FIFA ranking, it makes it more difficult for us to have our players go and play in the UK. So through Rangers, we appealed to the Scottish Premier League, Scottish Football Association to look at her case separately. And I think they form a 4-man panel, which then looks at the case as to why they should grant or they should recommend a grant of a work permit to the UK government. And we had letters from the AIFF. The Honorable President gave us a relevant letter which helped the cause. There was a letter from Baichung Bhutia which supported the cause. There was a letter from Sunil Chetri. There was a letter from the Football Players Association of India. And collectively, Rangers at their own cost appointed a lawyer which had this whole case put properly to the 4-man panel. And the panel unanimously, all 4 decided that gave us a green signal, or rather gave a letter stating to the UK officials to grant her the work permit. And she got a 2 years work permit because the contract was for 1.5 years, which meant 2 footballing seasons. And that's how she got it. So I think it was a good, I think we were happy that as a football club, although we don't have a women's team, we were able to contribute in some way or the other to help her facilitate this deal. And at the end of the day, it was her talent, her taking this opportunity, so to say, with both hands, and making a name for not only for herself, but I think Indian football also. And hopefully now that the season, the women's football for the new season is starting in the next 3 weeks, and hopefully she'll be able to do well for them, and hopefully she gets to participate in the Women's Champions League, which Rangers participate, and then if she goes and scores a goal, I think it's a big thing for Indian football. So it was just our job as a facilitator more than anything, and I think we are proud that we were able to ensure that she was able to get that contract.
I am glad that I asked this question. Great insights. And this is what I always say, what goes behind the scene is hardly known. There's so much of stuff which happened for Bala, which not very many people would know. I would, in fact, be keen to know from Mukul and Rohan also in the same breath as to what are your plans for the women's team? Because, majority of the girls coming from this part of the country. I mean, there are great opportunities at both states, Jharkhand and Odisha. So just your thoughts, Mukul, on that, and then I would check with Rohan also.
So just to add up to what Mandar just mentioned, there's an issue in terms of the number of days or the number of teams that participate in the Women's League right now. But what we have done is we are also preparing ourselves to that extent, because it's a category C criteria to have a women's team. And maybe it is not mandatory now, but in another 2-3 years to come, it would be an AFC criteria for you to fulfill as a club. And therefore, what one has done is basically started local league in Jamshedpur. So you must be aware of the Jamshedpur Sporting Association, which has the football, which is actually turning 75 years this year. So actually, I think one of the oldest league in the country, apart from what you have in Calcutta and western part of the country. But there has been a football culture, and we realized that if we have a women's league per se, and we were surprised that in the first year we had 8 teams which participated, and this year we had applications for a little more than 15 teams. So that's the kind of traction that football has created in Jamshedpur and otherwise. So we have this league which is parallelly happening. I have this girls who are regularly playing. We see to it that though this league is not more than 1.5 months right now, but we know that there are players. Tomorrow, if I have to form a team, I know I can pick up these players and actually use them. I'm also seeing to it that they're engaging in some form or the other with the schools as well. So in time to come, we're just seeing to it if there's more participation, of course, the duration of the league will go more, and therefore, and so on and so forth. If we have 3 months or 4 months of engagement for these girls, nothing like it. And then they can be easily inducted into a club where they could represent Jamshedpur FC, so to say. So this is the plans, and we will go the same route. In fact, our current soccer schools, we have a little more than 20% of the participants which are girls. So to my surprise, I would also like to quote that, I was working in Mumbai before, and in 2006-07, typically one had organized one tournament, and we actually thought that we won't have any girls participation. And now we just kept that thing open because one of our team members said, no, you can't stop another gender. And you say that even if you get 5 members, you're going to conduct, or rather only 2 teams or 3 teams, you're still going to have games organized for them. And it was a 7-a-side tournament that we organized. And to our surprise, there were 100 girls teams that participated in 2006. So that's when it was an eye opener for us. And we never realized that, there would be so many girls which would be participating. And it was a completely different experience for me, and that's what it helped me to believe that there's a good amount of traction, and it's not limited to boys. It's just about unearthing all this talent and giving them that platform, honestly. So I think there are things to be done, and I think we are a distance to travel. So I think we'll get there in right time.
Great. Rohan, a quick one from you on this.
Where to begin? For me, growing up in the US, women's football is something that's very crucial to Americans, because that's the only time we're good at football. Else we're pretty rubbish across the board, but our women's team is really good. So you grew up looking at, Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe and Abby Wambach, and these are the people you idolize. Even as guys, you still appreciate them because what they do for the country is phenomenal. And when I came over to first Delhi Dynamos, we tried our best to integrate women's as much as we can into our system. So Aditi Chawan used to help us coach. Even Dalima used to come to our pitches to help us coach. And when I came to Odisha, one thing I've learned, and Vineel touched upon it earlier, is that the Odia women are actually really, really good. And they just don't have the right, traction facilities to do it. I understand Mukul is saying that, the league itself for the ILBL isn't as developed as we would want it to be, because you don't want to come in kind of half jumping in and kind of not doing a good job. and when, especially when the league is still short on enough teams. But being that as it says, being as it may, sorry, I still think that given the fact that the Under-17 World Cup is going to be in Bhubaneswar this year, I do want to work to see if I could do a women's team this year itself for Odisha FC. And I have talked about very, very briefly with the government, just on a very casual sense. We're still seeing if this can be done this year. I gave a timeline for myself, and I gave it even publicly. I said within 2 years we'll have a women's team. And because there's so many girls, and there actually are a lot of local schools that we could play, and we've started that in Sai University where we teach, girls football. I do think in Odisha I have a little bit more of a runway to do it, because since again the government's very supportive of the fields. Like, I know one thing is infrastructural challenges, which I'm sure we all face as clubs. And in Odisha, luckily they mentioned how Vineel sir mentioned earlier that there's going to be more pitches in Odisha this year. And I'm hoping, especially with the fact that Odisha FC will not be in Odisha, that if we're able to have a women's team this year itself, some of the fans can at least have a way to connect with the club in small way. But this is, still in the very nascent stages. If it does work out, we would like to have a team this year coming in. If not, then we'll do it next year. But within these 2 years, we do want to put it, because there's so many good talented girls in Odisha, and they're not getting the fair chances. And we've seen the reports that, a lot of these girls in the national team can't, get food or right nutrition. At least we want to have the Odia girls who are part of the team have that kind of structure going, and I have the bandwidth to do it. So I think we are going to try to work on it and at least have it for hopefully this year, if not then next year.
I mean, I can go on and on that. So, yes,
Rajiv, can I just come in
sure,
as far as the women's football is concerned?
Sure.
I think what Mandar and Mukul touched upon, and I think if you ask anyone in AIFF, whether it's our president, Mr. Patel, or General Secretary, Michelle Das, or anyone of my colleagues in the leagues department, I think we would all agree that AIFF hasn't done enough for women's football. There's so much more that we can do. But there's also so much more that we can do with the resources that are available with us. And with that, I think what we have really done in the last 2 years is reached out to Sai, and we are working very closely with Sport Authority of India. Obviously, one aspect of it is make the IWL from a 3-week, 4-week tournament into a 3-month, 4-month tournament, multi-venue event, so that more people get to see the girls. Girls get to play more matches. That's obviously in the pipeline. And equally important, starting youth leagues at the women's. So we started last year with under 17, a lot of help from Sai. The plans are to start under 13 and under 15 also for the girls. And we would like to believe this World Cup, which is there in February, March of 2021, would obviously put the spotlight on women's football. The way the under 17 World Cup really helped us to start the under 15 and under 13 league, will have the same kind of interest level from Sai, from the ministries, from the sponsors, and we can do much, much more. We really understand we need to have more matches, we need to have more teams. We're also pushing our state associations so that they can start their leagues at the state level. So the clubs get to play matches at the state level, qualify for IWL, play another 2-3 months of action in IWL. So end of the day, you end up playing for 4-5 months, and you play 20-25 matches, which I guess would be a good start. And as I said, resources has been an issue, but we are trying to see how we can work around it. And again, working very closely with Sai as far as development of women's football is concerned. And hopefully with these things, and also as I think Mukul touched upon, saying that women's football has been made part of the club licensing, we would obviously need the help and the support from the professional clubs of ISL and I-League. Last year, we only had one team out of the ISL I-League teams. That was Gokulam, who put our team in the IWL, and end of the day, they became champions. And when these ladies were marched in a Gokulam home match, the kind of reception that they got was fantastic. And the quality of the football that we have seen in IWL over the last 2-3 years have been fantastic. I think there's a lot of potential in women's football, and the women's national team has also really done well. So the support is required, support from AIFF definitely, support from the clubs, And I'm sure women's football through the IWL and the youth leagues can be much better and has a bright future.
Wonderful. In fact, as I was mentioning that I could go on and on with it, but we have obviously paucity of time. But I know the kind of initiatives with AIF has taken and trained the trainer programs, as well as training the referees. So that's good steps taken for the overall development of football. So we very quickly move to ISL, because we talk about the formation of a club, and then obviously the rise of ISL has brought the professionalism in terms of making a team. So let's hear from the three bigwigs here into some perspective about ISL and the steady rise as one of the top leagues. So Mandar, let's start with you. You in earlier interviews have said that previously it was extremely difficult for the management to convince the foreign players to come and play in India. But now after ISL is amongst the top league in Asia, you have players calling up and expressing the desire to play in India. How has this shift been and apart from impressive wages, what the other factors are appealing to these foreigners? Mandar? Mukul, you can take this. Yeah. I thought Mandar was... Mandar, you can start.
Is there.
Yeah. Mandar, you heard me on that, or should I repeat? I think there's some net connection issue.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mandar. We can hear you. Okay. In the meantime, let's hear from Mukul. Mukul, what's your thought on this while we get Mandar back?
So it's surely attractive. It's more visible. I think apart from the other things that have happened in terms of the quality of the game has gotten better, visibility. Of course, wages are very different from what it used to be in I-League. I think even Mandar would agree and Rohan would agree to that. It's very different because both myself and Mandar have worked in I-League and we know what kind of wages is to go in, and it's almost very, very different. And it's if you ask me, it is up to, I would not say European standard, but if you have to compare the second and third division in Europe, you might be very close to them. So and sometimes you are better than them. So it's very attractive to that extent, and therefore you have a lot of talent that you are able to attract. And otherwise also this league has become very visible. In fact, I can give you some examples somewhere, nothing to do with the way the league was at that point of time, but the infrastructure has gone way, improved many folds. I remember playing an I-League match at one point of time when we were playing in the afternoons at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was not at all conducive for audience to sit in. We used to play our matches in Cooperage. I think Mandar would remember, and even Sunando would remember. And the stadium was not up to something that one could, the infrastructure was not so great. And I used to remember that we used to have almost 22 players on the ground and less than 11 on the stadium. Not because of anything else, not because the quality was bad or something like that, but just that the experience on the stadium was not so good because you are sweating yourself. It was not moved to evenings. So slowly and steadily, even now, the I-League matches have also moved into the evening, and everything has changed, and we are improving by the day. So I think it's just helping the entire ecosystem. It's making it more and more conducive. The game presentation is great. I think we should give credit to Star TV here for the kind of presentation that has come into play. And we can see it from what they did out of Kabaddi. I could never imagine it becoming a spectator sport. So all credit to Star with how they have handled it. And of course, they've done very good for football in general in terms of getting it where it is today. Apart from even ISL, even AIFF, the way they have been pushing the whole thing. And I think it will only get better with time. So yes, it is attractive. It is more visible. And therefore, we are attracting more and more good talent from abroad, from international talent in India.
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah. Mandar, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I think I heard what Mukul said, and I think I second what all he has said. And I initially in the I-League, when we also started in 2013. What we saw was mainly the foreign players were the same foreign players which were moving from one club to the other. Mainly, you'll have the same Odafas or the same Ranty Martins, trying to move from a club. Odafa came from a Bangladesh club to Mohammedan Sporting for $2,500. and by the time he retired, he was on $25,000. So the same player, obviously, he had the capabilities and the ability, and probably one of the best foreigners to play. But if I'm paying $25,000 a month for a foreigner, and if I look somewhere else in the market, I'm pretty sure that I will get maybe a player with much more better exposure at a top league to come in and participate in India. So over a period of time, whether it's the I League or the ISL, also primarily because of like what Mukul was mentioning, the way it's conducted or the way it is organized in terms of the match operations or in terms of the facilities that the players are provided by respective clubs, not just a particular club, but all the clubs, has made it much more attractive for the foreign players, or rather they're more aware of the ISL as well as the visibility that the ISL provides. And obviously the wages, I mean, we are probably amongst the top 5 nations in Asia in terms of the wages is concerned. If you leave out, I mean, if you leave out the Middle Eastern countries, but in the eastern side of Asia, if you look at China, Korea, Japan, and then Vietnam to some extent, or Malaysia, Thailand, India is there and thereabouts with terms of the wages. So it becomes a attractive destination for the for the players to come, and it's getting more competitive. Even if you look at ISL, in the initial 1 or 2 years, we had star players coming in to play, but these star players were retired star players. For me, they were marquee players who probably were not marquee enough on the pitch. They were marquee enough maybe outside of the pitch because of what they did in the past. But for me, a definition of a marquee player is a player who scores 15 goals in a season. Then he can be a Sunil Chhetri also, or a Shubham Sarangi also for that matter. He's a marquee player. I mean, that's how you would probably define a marquee player. But yes, but did these marquee players bring equivalent or more revenue or sponsorship to the clubs? I don't think so. Whether a Del Piero or Anelka, but what it did, it got more eyeballs to for people to watch the league. It got more people attracted to the sport. So it had its own positives as well as it had its own negatives. But overall, all this has created much more awareness of players to know that there is a league in India called the ISL, where you had a Del Piero come and play, you had a Roberto Pires come and play, or an Anelka come and play, or you had a Marco Materazzi as a coach. So all these things collectively have made a huge difference, and I think that's why we are able to attract some of the really good talents, around the world to come and play in India at various clubs.
So going with the same set of thoughts, there's a thought in the I League, in one of the clubs of I League, Sudeva FC owner recently claimed that they will play the upcoming I League entirely with the Indian squad without any foreign players. What do you think of this step? And can we, in the near future, imagine your teams playing ISL with 11 Indian players on the field? Or how far are we from that day when we see the entire ISL match comprising 22 Indian players? Mind you, I'm of an opinion that what ISL having the international players has actually taken the league to a different level. The competitiveness of the league, the talent scouting, everything has taken a complete change and it has evolved. So this side of this comment, how does it hold it? Sunando, any thoughts on this?
Well, I've spoken to the owner. I think that there are 2 reasons. Firstly, he's got into I League this year through a bidding process. So getting a team ready in this pandemic is not a very easy proposition. And he doesn't want to spend money to blindly sign foreign players. And obviously foreign players tend to be more expensive than Indian players. And he has had a residential academy for the last 3-4 years. So he said that I have already invested money to build up players. So why not try out? And since he's got he won't be relegated this year. So he said, this is the best year for me to try out and see talent that I have, and I trust in them. And let me see where they stand vis-a-vis other players. And obviously we have seen clubs like Indian Arrows, obviously, played with all Indian players and have done reasonably well, not only in I-League, in Super Cup also. We've seen Indian Arrows with Indian players, 18, 19-year-old, beat Mumbai City, which had 4 foreigners playing. So there have been these kind of inspirational stories also. And I would hope that we get such stories from this year's the Sudevas FC's matches this year in I League. But it won't be easy. It won't be easy. But let's see what happens.
If I may,
yeah, sure, Rohan.
I may.
Yes.
I do think there should be a healthy mix of foreigner and Indians. I don't think there's a notion that, because even the EPL doesn't have all English players, right? In the EPL, you have a mix of Brazilians, you have some Spanish, and I actually do think if you have the right foreigners, they actually are good for your Indian players to learn from. And you could probably say in Bangalore, Partalu, how he's become almost Indian at this point, or Lucian Goyan, how much he influences, Mandar's old friend Anu became very good friends with Shubham and Vineet and all these guys in the squad. And, they learned from him the professionalism, what it takes to be a professional footballer, what it takes to do the training every day. So I'm hoping by Aridan being there, Daniel one day can say, I learned this from Aridan. I learned this from Anu. I learned this from watching Martin play. And these are the kind of quality, you have the right foreigner who is not just a marquee guy who says, give me the money, I do my check, goodbye, come back and I'll see you whenever I see you, then it's a bad thing. I think now clubs, all of us have gone smart. We're no longer looking for brand names. We're making our own foreigners brand names in India. Whereas a couple of years ago, you're trying to get like you said, like Mandar rightly said, the gang, the Del Pieros of the world or something. That was good for marketing gimmicks. But now we are trying to find, like Marcelino, for example, I was telling he became a brand name in India. And in fact, I was surprised. Even he was my first time. He came to me first. And when we announced his signing, everybody was going crazy on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram. It's our most like Instagram post. I'm thinking, okay, I didn't think it would be that big. I was more impressed with Diego, and they're no, Marcelino, that's the name we're all excited for. And so I think that the cool thing is now the ISL, because the competition, like Mandar said, has gotten better. And like Mukul said, the visual aspect of it, the TV on Star Sports, the announcing mid-game commentary and halftime, your British announcers, they do fantastic calls. I really enjoy listening to after the game. I don't know if you guys do this. After the game, I used to watch on Star Sports just to hear the announcers. They go, goal! And they do that thing, and they have that certain things they say. I like it now. It has a good professionalism to it. And I think having these foreigners as well, developing them, letting them Indians learn from them, it creates a lot of good value for the kids. If you get the right guys on your team, and now the coaches are smart, they're doing the same thing. Like Coach Baxter told me, I don't want a guy who accepts $200,000, $300,000. I want the guy who says, I want to come and learn and teach the boys and show them how it's done. And this is what the kind of mentality from all our coaches, I'm sure they're doing it. I'm sure Owen and Carlos is the same thing, because I've spoken with them off, casually and for hear from your interviews. They all are the same kind of people. But they want to have the Indian boys learn. They want to have the foreigners influence them positively rather than negatively. And I think that's the key thing, having good foreigners in the ISL.
I entirely agree with you, because it's in similar thought when you are talking about an Indian team. You have people coming from diverse, aspects of the country and different, obviously, completely different style of the sport they play, irrespective of what sport we are talking about. And that's where brings the culture and binds them together, binds the talent. Some could be excelling in one particular type, and the other could be in some other category. So I think overall, all these, Premier Leagues are all about honing the best skill and obviously getting the best talent, So that's what it is. But my last point, in fact, where we could spend 5-7 minutes because we already overshot our time, is about football is all about fans. And as we get into the fandom culture of Indian football, in fact, something which BFC has shown, speaking about the fan culture in India, apart from East Bengal and Mohun Bagan fan clubs, Bengaluru FC, West Block Blues have made their mark on the fan culture seeded India. And the clubs have supported the fan club immensely by providing them the transport to go to the away games, and many other perks unheard of in the Indian football. Tell us about your association with the WBB and your overall fan engagement. And I'm sure Mukul has very good inputs in that also. So Mandar, to you.
No, I think I would say that we are, very lucky to have the fans that we have, which we consider as the 12th man. And I can honestly say that there have been matches which we were probably drawing or losing. We were able to come back and have a positive result because of the kind of a support we had in the last few minutes or the entire game per se. So I think that is something which we feel we are fortunate to have for sure. But at the same time, I think it's something which has happened, it's grown over a period of time. We have got a very good media team which understands the pulse of the fans or what they require. But having said that, I think we still need to improve a lot, because we still have to reach out to the more local peoples, the more people that are, I would say, Kannada speaking, or the more integrate part of the city, so to say. I think we have got a lot more to try and reach out to them. I think we have good enough fans, but I think we still need to add on to wherever we can, increase the kind of support that we get. Yes, there are a lot of things that as a club we are doing to ensure that we probably take them to an away game. Maybe even for our AFC Cup games, there were incidents where there were occasions where we had taken a lot of fans with us at their cost. Not that the club is funding or sponsoring their travel, etc. So there have been such various properties per what we say in terms of the fan engagement. Like even now for the coming season, with the challenges that we are going to have, and with the kind of uh, closed doors matches that we are going to have, how we can innovate, or how we can digitally ensure that we can integrate the fans or the following for the club. And I think in a few days time, I think the team is ready with the various things that they want to come out this season in certain ways. And in a few weeks time, we will be able to see the kind of work that our team has been doing in terms of ensuring that we're able to do that. So it's something which is mutually done. I mean, we do not want our fans to have a certain kind of a banner, or we do not orchestrate it. It's something which has to come naturally. It is something which has to come from the fans. And what I also feel is, I honestly feel, as you rightly mentioned, East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, I mean, tremendous fan following. Even in the ISL, if you see Kerala Blasters, I think the numbers are incredible. But what is important, even for East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, Sunando can even, vouch for that, that if in a derby, if Mohun Bagan is winning and East Bengal is losing, you'll have the fans throwing stones on the cars of the players, etc. So it gets to a certain different level in terms of the support. Or even we saw in Blasters game last season, like Blasters have a phenomenal following, but if the team is not doing well, you don't see those fans in the stadium. For me, that these are no fans. You need to have fans who support the team, whether they're down or whether they're up. That is something I think as a club, we may not have the numbers, but we in the smaller numbers also we have the fans who support us even when we are losing or even if we lost. And take an example of the AFC Cup this season, where we lost in the qualifiers, which was something which was very, very bad for us. But even at that moment of time, we had the fans, come and support us, although they shouldn't have been, because we did not do justice, not only as a club, but even to Indian football by, going out from a qualifying round. So having said that, but we still have that support. And I think that is something I feel is a biggest positive for us as a club to have such kind of fans.
Thank you. And before I ask Mukul to give his inputs, Diksha, any questions hovering around?
Yes, in fact, a lot of them. But then
okay, so just park it for 2 minutes. Let me take view of Mukul, and then we come back quickly to the Q&A and wind it off, because I think we overshot also. So Mukul, just on the same point, same breath, your views, please.
Yeah, so I think just to add on to what Mandar mentioned, typically you are as good as your fans are in terms of numbers, and even otherwise in terms of the way they cheer and stuff like that. It has to come from heart. You can't orchestrate it. So typically what we have been doing is, in last 3 years, wherever we had any opportunity, we have actually initially targeted a 550-kilometer diameter within and around Jamshedpur, where we actually conduct tournaments and engage in football, various forms of football across, be it community, be it at village level. We actually go and participate. We see to it that we have our presence. So we do a lot of balls distribution. We don't give money out, but we encourage them to play football and somehow, some form or the other. We see to it that throughout the year, whether your season is on or not, we basically engage with them and ensure that we support them in many ways, which could be sometimes I sponsor referees for them, but that was more to encourage them to have a more professional game, so to say. And also, instead of giving any cash, I would say, no, I would give you 10 balls if you conduct this tournament, and they would do that. And it's a big thing for them. And slowly and steadily, we realized that the amount of emotional connect that we managed to develop, that's what shows on the stadium when we host matches. I thought it would be there for the first year and happened for second year. And last year we were not doing so well. And still, if I have that consistent audience coming there, many times people ask me whether, we do it, do we give out free tickets? But it's not free. Basically, I have one thing is there. I've priced my tickets very aggressively, but we want them to buy and still come and watch the game, and they still do. And that's something I think as a club, we feel it's an achievement, and we would want to carry on that the way it is, and see to it that even if you price it aggressively, you see to it they buy it and come. And we have this, and we have good amount of following. And like Mandar mentioned, it makes a big difference to the players when they're on the field. When your team is just, when you have your fans cheering for you, you have an amazing, there's a different feeling altogether. The kind of connect that a player has with the fan when he's shouting, it's very different for cheering for him. And it could turn around results for you. But more than that, it's just a good feeling when you as an administrator see the kind of numbers and following that is growing, and you feel somewhere that you're making a difference to the society in a way. So that's from me. Thanks.
Rajiv, can I quickly just jump in on this? I know we are running out of time. Because I do want to give credit to what I saw in Odisha, because I came from Delhi where it was a very, I wouldn't say not inaccurate statement that we didn't have a lot of fans. We had fans, were a small number, but they're very loyal, but it wasn't as big. In Odisha, one thing I saw of the Juggernauts was remarkable, and what they do off the pitch. Like I was thinking, maybe you've heard this. They wrote reports to me, like proper auditing reports of what they have done, what they have spent their money on. I'm not getting money, but they have their own money, what they've spent on, what they're planning to do, how they plan for next quarter, what they're planning to invest in, and to show what they're going to do. And it's very remarkable. And you talk about buying tickets, and Mukul and of course Mandar both have very good fan bases, the Red Miners and their fan base, and they're always sold out. Even this year, for the first time, I had people of 7,000 people who attended our game. I think 4,500 to 5,000 people were buying tickets. For me, that was remarkable for me. I never had that in Delhi in my life. That was more than I've sold in Delhi, I think, in 3 years in Delhi. Just that four games of Bhubaneswar, I sold more than 3 years in Delhi combined, which to me was shocking. Shocking. My jaw had dropped when I saw those figures. And what I like is that they're even trying to taking upon themselves to set up chapters elsewhere. So in Hyderabad, we have a Hyderabad chapter, and that's led by Shubham's dad, who's leading that chapter. And then we actually have one in Bangalore, we have one in Mumbai. And so we have games, we always have that consistent fan base, no matter where I go, except for, sorry, Mukul, I have nothing in Jamshedpur, so you've dominated that market. But in other cities, I have a huge fan base. I'm not huge, but I have a reasonable fan base buying tickets to come to the away stand. And it's very remarkable to see that. And what I think as a club, what we try to do is try to give more unfiltered access. Because unfortunately for Mandar sir, he has Sunil Chhetri and Gurpreet. They're going to mob them every time. They're going to mob those two guys. My team is more of mom and pop. I don't know, Vineet's not that big. Jerry's not that big yet. Shubham and Gaurav, they're there. But so we let them kind of interact more with the team. You see them in the malls. They always are there. They say hi because, Odisha is Bhubaneswar is a little bit smaller. So you have more access to the fans. You go to the mall one day, there's that one mall, and they all come there and everybody goes, "Hi, how's it going?" And we go to the airport, they all know us. Like, when I was leaving to go back to Dubai, the security guard was patting me down and saying, "What's our chances for next year? Are we retaining Aridan? Are we retaining Anwu? How many goals do you think you're going to score next year?" And I was like, man, I didn't even expect that we're getting patted down for security. So we had that community aspect we're trying to develop in. Because this is a little bit smaller, we're able to put our foot down there more. So that's beautiful about Odisha.
No, it is indeed. In fact, Odisha, you would be surprised as you go along, because my visits to the rural side of it, there's only two things which I heard: hockey and football. And that says it all. And there are sports hostels under Government of Odisha Department of Sports and Youth Services. I mean, excellent work going on, and there's a good potential. And just to compliment Mukul, because I also spent some time in the first inaugural season, I couldn't believe my eyes. There were fans taking the seat 1 hour before the match. I mean, that's the kind of craze. That's the kind of craze which that place brought. I mean, as Mukul said, the local league had a very good fanfare, and obviously that had a rub off. But then overall, the JFC created that space for them. So that's the magic of fan culture and fandom. So we now need to wind this up. Diksha, it's all yours. If there is any question, you can just quickly run through.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of questions. I really do not know how to
just
which one to take. We'll just take a few of them, because I think a lot of it has already been answered with the wonderful, engaging conversation that we had with all our panelists. I think most of our questions will be answered, but I'll quickly take a few. So there's one from Ojus which talks about, this is for all the panelists in general, the potential sports sciences and sports management hold in the upcoming days of Indian football. I can, any one of you can just talk about it. Any one of our panelists. He's given it to, not addressed to any particular panelist.
So maybe, yeah, Mandar?
Oh,
I think,
okay.
Sunando,
Mandar,
Sunanda, you have started in AIFF, the institute. So I think you should
I was just
you can just,
saying that.
yes, you can say that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a good question at the moment, and good time for me to answer that. We have just launched, I think, the first sports body in India to launch such. We've launched the AIFF Masters, the sports management course, and the response that we got, the number of applications, and unfortunately we couldn't take all of them. And we obviously, other than classroom studies, and we are sending them over to Spain for them to spend a month with the club. And the requirement for such professionals in professional clubs like ISL and the I-Leagues, and also in other sporting areas, not only football, has grown up so much in the last few years. And we see that AIFF has a role in that to play. That's the reason we launched the AIFF Masters. And hopefully we'll be able to get few very exciting young professionals joining the sports arena.
Wonderful. I think that should answer some part of it. Ojas, that was Ojas Medhekar for you. And I'll quickly take two questions which are concerning 23-year-old and an 11-year-old. So I'll just take them quickly. So one is from Aditya Vijay Kumar, where he's asking, with so much of grassroots structure in place, has Indian football given up on players above the age of 23 who want to start and possess talent? And there's one father asking about an 11-year-old. So I think two different kind of questions. So again, that's directed to, any one of you can just take it up.
No, I think we haven't given up on the 23-year-olds for sure. But on the serious side, I think if we have to think about India as a nation growing in football, I think we need to think about the kids who are right now maybe 10 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, and ensure that we, through the various stakeholders in Indian football, ensure that there is a very good pathway for them to grow and develop in future to go and to represent the Indian football. Because even if you take a Sunil Chetri or a JJ or a Sandesh, they are in a certain mold of playing where whatever you want to teach them now is not going to change, because they have come through a structure and that's going to continue. But the kids are like an open canvas. You can keep on educating them, coaching them, and mold them in what we want to do. So I think this is something. And there are the numbers, right? Today you're talking about maybe 10 clubs in the ISL, 10 clubs in the I-League, and maybe 10 clubs in the second division, where you are talking about only 30 clubs, with each club having 25 players, which is 750 players only. Whereas if you look at the grassroots and youth development, there are, thousands and lakhs of players. And if we can have a good structural coaching and competition system given to them, I think that's where we need to invest in to ensure that as a nation, we grow in the sport, which is globally such a big sport any which ways.
And we are obviously not forgetting the seniors. There's a reason why Mandar has lost 18 kgs. So we are also looking after the 25 plus years.
Right. So I think that answers. But we'll go to the 11-year-old also. But we have something for Rohan. So this is a question from of course, a journalist here. So he wants to know, as per your commitment to the government of Odisha, based on your MOU, your club has responsibility to develop the grassroots as well as youth system of Odisha. And what is your roadmap, a future roadmap on this?
Yeah, I saw his question. I think he was a little bit ill-informed. Basically, last year we had still under 18, under 15, under 13 team playing in the I-Leagues, on the I-League youth divisions. Our under 18 team actually was very good last year. It was one of the top in the country, and I think we had the top scorer in our team. Akshun and Rashab both were one of the top three, and the three top scorers. Just last year, because of our move, with the way it was so quickly, we couldn't have, due to the weather conditions, we couldn't set up our youth academies in Odisha this year. Now with the pandemic again, it looks like it's gonna be a little bit difficult, but the idea is to have our full under 18, under 15, 13 league that we already have, teams already have in just Delhi, try and move it back to Odisha. And we've contacted the FAO to at least get licensing so we can start putting our movement there and everything. I don't know if it'll be this year because of the fact of the pandemic and how safe with the I-League will allow with the leagues going on, if parents even want to have their kids playing with the pandemic going on. But it's very much our aim and goal to keep, growing and teaching the kids of Odisha football. And, it's something we're working very closely with the government, and Vineel sir knows how much we want to keep doing it to make sure that these kids are still playing and growing.
All right. So I think that's I think you'd already discussed that while you were having this discussion with Mr. Rajiv. There's one more for you, Rohan. I'll just quickly take that.
Wow. Very popular.
Yeah. So is there any plan of Odisha FC to get into a partnership with an European club to develop grassroots talent? Partnership with European club will attract fans of that club. Also will help the in the club in knowing the know-how. So the technical know-how. So such.
I mean, we have a partnership with Aspire still. This is still last year with a partnership with Aspire. One thing when we first were deciding between club versus Aspire, because we had offers from other clubs, I like that Aspire took the kids and literally like put them in a dorm and saying, you're gonna learn football and we're gonna pay for your education, we're gonna do everything in Qatar, and you do everything and come back to you. I like that. I'm not paying. I don't know how all the other clubs are, the relationship with their own parent clubs, not parent clubs. These foreign clubs are. So I don't want to speak for them, but I want a club. If I do go for a club, I want a club that does that as well. And that's why I'm very choosy, even though we've had offers from other clubs already, because everyone wants to get into India. You don't want to find a club who's just doing it for marketing purposes, because that's a waste of time. You want it, or put their name saying Real Madrid or PSG soccer schools in Odisha or Delhi. That to me is a waste of time. You want a partnership with a club who is going to put investment to that city, going to put investment to your players, investment to grow things, to coaches, to make sure you're getting the best kind of growth. It's a real association rather than just a gimmicky one just for Marcus to put on Twitter that, hey, guess what? They signed with Real Madrid or something. To me, that doesn't have that value. You want to have a person who's your partner. So that's why I was happy with Aspire and Ivan Bravo doing his thing. We could in the future, but for now, I need something who does that, the same thing that Aspire is doing for me.
Fair enough. I'll just quickly, I think we're just running out of time. So quickly, a lot of questions. So I'll just take last two. This one is, again, directed to all the panelists. How can we develop football culture in India? Does India has national curriculum? If yes, are these clubs following it, or are they following their own curriculum? If no, then how can we develop a sustainable culture in India? That's a question again from one of the journalists, local journalists. Anybody would like to?
Mukul?
Oh, Sunando. Yeah.
Sunando. Okay.
India.
All right.
Thanks, Mukul. So obviously, clubs would have different style of play. I guess that's what question is about. Different clubs with different mindset and the coaching philosophy that they have would have slightly different style of play, and maybe the national federation or the national teams would have different style of play, which would be dictated mostly by the senior national team coach. That goes down, and both our the coach Igor as well as our technical director Isaac has been working very closely with each other, trying to formulate a unique style of play which suits India, and which would be implemented not only for the Sunils and the senior team, but also for the Arrows and going down to the under 15 teams. And Isaac has been regularly in touch with the technical directors of all the ISL and I-League clubs, and exchanging ideas and trying to formulate the winning kind of a formula, which is helpful for the development of Indian football. That answers that.
All right. So, just talking about...
This is the last one, Diksha?
Yeah. And we'll just quickly take the last one. I think, although there are many more, but I think we'll just take them later. So this is about, okay, let me just, I'll have to look through. There's so many of them. I wanted to take this up in particular because, yeah. So for an 11-year-old who is into football for the last few years and is now looking for a platform like Odisha or a Bangalore, what are the criteria these clubs would see in an 11-year-old so he gets signed for a residential program? I think since we've been talking a lot about young talents, I thought, probably it's his father asking. So maybe if some of you could answer that.
No, I mean, I think the best thing is that he should just keep on playing, whether it's at his school level or whether it is at whatever level he's at right now. Because the more he plays, the more he's going to be visible for maybe scouts or coaches from whoever is watching him. So whenever a kid plays, he has to ensure that he gives his 100%, whether it is even a small game within his vicinity or his neighborhood, or if he's representing his school team, or whether he's representing his local club, very local pay and play program club that he has within his neighborhood. So I think it's just about playing. And if you have the talent, I think you are not going to get not noticed by anybody, and you will definitely have a certain club to come and select you or scout you and induct you into their own program. So it's about just playing and just enjoying. And you know, if you have the talent, you'll definitely be noticed by someone or the other.
And if you're the parent who wrote that, I mean, you have to help push your kid, because it's very important to have in all these success stories. I'm sure there are many other Sunil Chetris in India that didn't make it because their parents said, you need you to focus on your studies or become an engineer or become a lawyer. Football's a waste of time. And I hope if you're a parent on this, that your kid loves football, please push them. Please let them encourage their dream, because this is how we get more Jingans and Chetris and Tapas and Brandons in this world, because the parents are pushing them. And all the stories I have for all my kids in my team, like Jerry or Chungte in the past, they were always saying how their parents pushed them. And I see how Shubham, how his dad and mom are so involved with his football career that you need to have that as a parent. And you got to help your kid, push your kid. Don't give him on his dreams, because he could make it one day, or she might make it one day.
I can completely second what Rohan is mentioning and even what Mandar mentioned. Typically, I personally believe, because I was also running football schools in my career, when I was part of my career, and trust me, we have lost a lot of footballing talent to education, formal education. I don't know whether it's the right statement to make, but we have lost a lot of talent to, because many a time, see, you're peaking around 14, 15, 16, and that's the time you're in 9th, 10th, 11th. And, you know, that's when the parents really pull them off. And I've been counseling many parents in terms of telling them as to why they should continue, or let them not at least spend some time. But once they cut off from the field for more than 6 months, it's very difficult to get them back. So it's a big role that the parents play, and I think that's something that we have to be very, very cautious about as parents. Now that I'm also a parent, typically I think we play a big role, and I would suggest that, you know, though you have a little more definitive definitive career when it comes to formal education, sports is something that teaches you many, many more things. I'm particularly speaking to this 11-year-old friend. Typically, if you ask me, not only there are many life lessons that one would learn, but more importantly, it's about losing and making a comeback and preparing for the next game. And it's about the recovery that happens. You know, I should not be saying it might be wrong, but you might find a few suicides happening in Bollywood, but not so many with sportsmen. That's probably the reason, because, you know, they know the recovery mechanism is much better. They're much better built in terms of mental strength, in terms of dealing with problems, and therefore a much more stable mental health. So I would say that, you know, you should pursue, or rather you let your child pursue sports as much as possible and let him progress in that, while the studies can happen in the background. Thanks.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful advice from all of you, parents, to allow the kids to pursue the game and like you said, play, but enjoy as well. I think that's also very important. I think we have a lot of more questions, but what we can do is maybe I'll request all of those who have questions, maybe through the academy, we'll try to take it offline with our panelists and get back with an answer with you. Over to you, Rajiv. I think we should, I think we're already...
Yes, thank you. Before we conclude, Diksha, I think I have one last question to Vineel sir, before you take the honors of doing vote of thanks, which you always do the best. Question for you, sir. How do we inculcate, I mean, it's in line to something which Mukul left at, how do we inculcate a holistic football culture in our country? Will it be through the education system, with now a lot of talk about sports being a part of the academic curriculum, or what are the parts that the government and the clubs can play here in easing this process?
I think I was just listening to Mukul, and he was making very interesting, valid points about education and how the parents take away the students because of away from the sport. So actually, I was remembering one of the discussions that we had. Probably it's difficult a bit to implement, but at some point we have to do it. Because unless you bring the middle class into the sports in India is never going to really develop. And the middle class is completely latched on to the education, and rightly so, because education provides the certifications or whatever that require for them to have a job. There is some sense of security. So sometime back we were actually thinking that probably if we make sports as a compulsory subject and say that even in your 10th, it's not just a something that you just pass kind of a thing. You actually, your marks will add to your total marks. Then you create the ecosystem on its own. So once they know that, you know, getting that 90, 95, 99 in sports also adds to your total marks.
Correct.
Then you have a whole ecosystem of tuition teachers, coaching academies coming up all across the state, all across the cities. And the parents will actually be willing to spend money, saying that we, you know, send them early in the morning or in the evening, spend money on the coaches, coaching programs, and competitions, so that their kids start getting more marks in their classes, especially like 10th and 12th. So that is something that you know, it's actually doable thing. So you just have to make it compulsory, and then, you know, the entire ecosystem builds on its own. Then the money also gets pumped in, then coaches, everybody becomes more self-sustaining, and so on and so forth. So that's one way of doing it, even though it might be a bit difficult to implement, but that is something that actually can be done.
Great, sir. And so some of your thoughts on the physical literacy program that the government has done, you know, obviously at a different level again, with the PE teachers coming and, you know, to certain level of expectation and then disseminating that information. Just a little thought on physical education journey of our physical literacy program of ours.
So that also, as you know, we are doing in partnership with Tata Trust and ELMS Foundation, where we have this physical literacy program going on. And unfortunately, due to Corona, now the entire physical literacy program has to be online. So people are actually sitting and listening to what is a physical literacy program. And we are having these physical education teachers who are being trained online on how to do the physical activities and those curriculums. So that is again another thing that is very, very important in the educational system, where we make it compulsory, and then we, you know, in the school, the last person who's actually the principal is worried about is the PET teacher, because physical education period is typically a free period.
That's right.
In most of the schools, it is like you don't have to do anything. You are free. You go, if you want to play, you play, or you just roam around. So that culture has to go, where physical education also becomes an important subject. They tell about the body, how to take care of it, how to be physically fit, what kind of a food to eat, what not to eat, what to do, when to do. So these kind of things need to be taught, and they need to be taught the theory of the various games, the rules and regulations of the games, so that they all understand the sports in a proper manner, and they develop it right from the school stage. So that is another small little attempt that we are started, where we all these physical education teachers, for example, in Odisha, we have 7,000 physical education teachers, and they are completely underutilized. Even the principal don't know what they are doing it. And when we started this program, they themselves were so surprised that somebody in the government is actually calling them for a training program. They never had training program. Somebody has completed 30 years of their service as a PET teacher, and they never attended a training program. So this is again something that is very important if you have to build it right from the school level, and that is something that we have started, and we hope that itself will bring in a lot of change in the sports orientation of the students right from their school stage.
Thank you very much, sir. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, indeed, this has been one of the fascinating, you know, talk which I've had for a very long time. I stand to learn, because this is a sport, something which I'm passionate about. Maybe I've not played to that level or anything of that sort, but I'm being a sportsman myself. You know, I really enjoyed this discussion, and most importantly, the presence of all the esteemed panelists. So I would request my colleague Diksha to just offer a vote of thanks before we can wind this up. Thank you very much, all. Diksha, are you there? Okay. So I think Diksha had to leave quickly for some urgent work. So once again, thanking each one of you, Mandar, Rohan from abroad. So that's even
Live
big
from Dubai.
from Dubai. So Mukul, Vineel sir, Sunando, thank you very much. And I think the listeners and the viewers who attended this webinar stand to learn and gain out of it. And we will have a lot of questions that we need to address, and we will come back to you, all the esteemed panelists, and take your views before we can answer to some of them, to all those interesting candidates. Once again, thank you very much. And thanks to Vineel sir for spending his valuable time and the work which is going on in the state of Odisha. Thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you, Rajiv, and thank you, everyone. It was a
Thank you.
fantastic session.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
You. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, sir.
Great to connect as always.
Thank you.